I want to speak to you today about a subject that's crucial for your spiritual growth and understanding of God's will in your life. We often hear people talk about finding the right relationships, but there are times when we must recognize that God is guiding us away from certain relationships, not toward them. There are signs, unmistakable signs, that indicate when someone is not meant to be in your life. When you find yourself in a relationship where your core values, beliefs, or purpose are consistently being challenged or compromised, it's a powerful indicator that God may not be leading you in that direction. Each of us was created with a unique purpose, and that purpose is built upon certain values, principles that guide our actions, thoughts, and decisions. These values are not just preferences or opinions, they are foundational to who we are and why we exist. In a relationship, if someone continuously encourages you to step away from those values or causes you to act in ways that contradict your beliefs, it becomes a spiritual conflict. This is not simply a matter of personality differences or misunderstandings. It's a deeper issue of alignment with your God-given identity. If you are compromising your integrity, your faith, or your moral compass to please or accommodate someone else, it's a sign that the relationship is not in harmony with God's plan for your life. For example, if someone pressures you to make decisions that are morally or ethically wrong, or if they encourage you to abandon your spiritual practices, values, or convictions, this is more than a disagreement. It's a violation of the purpose and design God has placed within you. God does not call us to compromise our values for the sake of relationship. In fact, He desires for us to stand firm in our beliefs and purpose, regardless of external pressure. Moreover, when you're in a relationship where you feel forced to adjust your purpose, dreams, or calling to fit the desires or expectations of someone else, you are allowing your divine purpose to be sidelined. Your purpose is your destiny, and it is woven into every aspect of your life. To compromise that purpose for the sake of any relationship is to ignore the unique calling God has placed on your life. It's an invitation to step out of alignment with His will. And the consequences of that can be far-reaching, affecting not only your spiritual well-being, but also your emotional, mental, and even physical state. A relationship that causes you to compromise your values and purpose is not just unhealthy, it is a sign that God is directing you away from it. In those moments of tension, you are being called to evaluate whether this relationship is supporting your God-given mission or hindering it. Your values and purpose are sacred, and no relationship, no matter how strong the emotional pull, should cause you to forsake what God has ordained for your life. A spiritual disconnect in a relationship can be one of the most significant signs that God does not want you to be with someone. Spiritual connection is the foundation upon which a healthy, God-centered relationship is built. When two people are walking in the same faith and purpose, their spiritual lives naturally align. They inspire, encourage, and challenge each other to grow in their relationship with God. But when there is a disconnect, it creates distance not only between the individuals, but also between you and God. This disconnect may manifest in various ways. Perhaps the person you are with does not share your faith, or maybe they show no interest in spiritual matters. When you are in a relationship with someone who does not prioritize God or spiritual growth, it places you in a position where your faith becomes unbalanced. You may find yourself being the one to always initiate prayer, church attendance, or spiritual discussions while the other person remains indifferent or even resistant. This can lead to frustration and feelings of isolation as you may begin to feel like you are carrying the weight of your spiritual life alone. Another form of spiritual disconnect arises when someone actively discourages or undermines your faith. If they mock or belittle your beliefs, or if they try to pull you away from spiritual practices, this is a sign that the relationship is spiritually unhealthy. A true partner in faith should encourage and support your walk with God, not cause you to question or abandon it. If you find yourself compromising your beliefs or making excuses for someone's lack of spiritual commitment, you may be allowing a disconnect to widen. This spiritual disconnect also leads to a misalignment in values. Your faith influences every decision you make, how you view the world, how you interact with others, how you approach challenges, and how you make major life decisions. When someone does not share that same foundation, your paths will diverge. Even if you are deeply in love with the person or share common interests, if there is no shared spiritual vision, the relationship will struggle to thrive long term. Additionally, this disconnect can stifle your spiritual growth. Relationships are meant to be spaces where both individuals can grow closer to God, not just to each other. When one person is disconnected from their faith or uninterested in spiritual development, it can create a spiritual drag on the other person. Instead of feeling supported and encouraged in your journey with God, you may feel spiritually drained, isolated, or even guilty for wanting to pursue a deeper connection with God. This can lead to spiritual stagnation, where your faith is no longer being nurtured, but instead being sidelined by the disinterest or opposition of the other person. A relationship where there is spiritual disconnect ultimately hinders the fulfillment of your divine calling. God has designed you for a specific purpose, and that purpose is closely tied to your spiritual growth and connection with Him. If someone is preventing you from growing spiritually or pulling you away from God, it's not just a matter of compatibility, it's a matter of divine alignment. God wants you to be in relationships that strengthen your faith, not cause it to waver. If the person in your life is leading you away from your spiritual foundation, that is a clear sign that God is guiding you to let go. When there is unsettling peace and confusion in a relationship, it serves as a significant warning sign that God may not want you with that person. Peace is one of the most powerful indicators of being in alignment with God's will. The Bible speaks about the peace of God that transcends all understanding, guarding our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus, Philippians 4:7. When you are walking in God's plan, there is a sense of peace that comes with it, even in challenging circumstances. However, when you are in a relationship that is not part of God's will, that peace is replaced with a sense of inner turmoil, unease, and confusion. This unsettling feeling can manifest as a constant inner struggle or discomfort. You may find that, despite outward appearances, something feels off in the relationship. It's a nagging sense that things are not as they should be, even though everything might seem fine on the surface. The Holy Spirit often works through our peace to guide us, and when that peace is absent, it's as though the Spirit is signaling that something is out of alignment. Confusion is another key sign that God might be steering you away from a relationship. Confusion is a product of indecisiveness and lack of clarity. When you're in a relationship that is not part of God's plan, you may find yourself questioning your decisions, feeling uncertain about the future, or doubting your instincts. The confusion could be around whether the relationship is right for you, whether the other person is truly aligned with your values, or even whether the relationship is fulfilling your God-given purpose. You might wrestle with conflicting emotions, love, but uncertainty, affection, but doubt. This internal contradiction can become overwhelming, and it is a sign that God is trying to get your attention. Moreover, confusion can stem from the feeling that you are not hearing God's voice clearly in the midst of the relationship. God's will is often communicated to us through His peace, through His word, and through clear direction in our hearts. When you are not experiencing that clarity, and the relationship is clouding your ability to discern God's voice, that's a sign that something is amiss. It may feel as though God's guidance is muffled or distant, making it difficult for you to discern what steps to take next. The lack of peace often leaves you in a state of uncertainty, wondering whether you are making the right decisions. When peace is replaced with unrest, your emotions and thoughts can become chaotic, and you may find yourself feeling mentally and spiritually drained. You may begin to question your own identity or spiritual direction, and the confusion can lead to self-doubt or even fear. This is not the way God intends for His children to live. The Lord desires to lead you with clarity and purpose, and if a relationship is clouding your mind, heart, or faith, it's a sign that the relationship may not be the one He has chosen for you. This unsettling peace and confusion are often God's way of protecting you, helping you realize that a certain relationship is leading you away from the peace and clarity He desires for you. It may feel uncomfortable to acknowledge these feelings, but they are a sign of God's love and protection, urging you to seek His will above all else. When you experience confusion or lack of peace in a relationship, it's important to step back, seek God's guidance through prayer, and listen carefully for His direction. Trust that He will never lead you into confusion, but rather into the peace and clarity that come from walking in His purpose. When a relationship begins to drain your energy and joy, it's a clear indication that something is spiritually off. God has designed you to experience abundant life full of peace, love, and joy, fruits of the Spirit that should characterize your relationships. If being with someone leaves you feeling emotionally, mentally, or spiritually exhausted, it's a sign that this relationship is not aligned with God's will for your life. One of the primary ways a relationship can drain you is through constant negativity or emotional turmoil. If you find that the other person is frequently negative, critical, or hostile, it can wear you down over time. Instead of being a source of encouragement, they may consistently bring stress, anxiety, or sadness into your life. This constant emotional drain can start to affect every aspect of your well-being, from your physical energy to your ability to focus to your overall joy in life. Relationships should build you up, not leave you feeling depleted. If you feel like you are constantly giving without receiving any encouragement, love, or positivity in return, it can leave you feeling empty. Another way energy can be drained is through manipulation or emotional control. Some individuals thrive on controlling or dictating the terms of the relationship, and they may use guilt, fear, or emotional pressure to maintain dominance. This can cause you to lose sight of your own needs, desires, and purpose. Instead of feeling like an equal partner, you may feel as though you are constantly walking on eggshells or bending over backward to satisfy the other person's demands. This kind of emotional manipulation saps your joy because it prevents you from being free to express yourself authentically and to live according to your own values. Relationships that drain you often require an imbalance of effort. When one person is constantly giving and the other is taking without any reciprocation, it creates a disparity that can be emotionally exhausting. You may feel as though you are carrying the weight of the relationship on your own, whether it's in providing emotional support, resolving conflicts, or taking on the burdens of the other person. Over time, this one-sided dynamic leads to burnout, leaving you feeling worn out and disconnected from the joy and peace that God wants for you in relationships. A relationship that drains your energy can also manifest in spiritual disconnection. If the person you are with does not share your values, beliefs, or purpose, or if they actively undermine your spiritual growth, it can lead to a slow depletion of your inner peace. Spiritual stagnation often follows this draining process, where you begin to feel distant from God, unable to focus on your faith, or disconnected from your own spiritual identity. This lack of spiritual alignment can further erode your joy as you lose sight of the greater purpose for your life. God desires for you to be in relationships that encourage your growth in Him, not relationships that distract you from your calling or undermine your faith. Moreover, relationships that drain your joy are often rooted in unhealthy patterns of behavior. If you're constantly having to manage the other person's emotional needs, adjust to their insecurities, or deal with their unpredictable behavior, it creates an environment of instability and uncertainty. This chaos can weigh heavily on your soul, robbing you of the sense of peace and joy that should be present in a healthy relationship. Joy is a reflection of the inner peace that comes from being in right alignment with God and His will for your life. When your relationship constantly causes you to feel anxious, upset, or burdened, it is a clear sign that it is not the relationship God intends for you. Ultimately, God desires that your relationships are life-giving, not life-draining. He has created you to be in relationships that build you up, challenge you to grow, and encourage you to walk in His purpose. If a relationship is doing the opposite, draining your energy and joy, it is time to reassess its place in your life. God does not want you to be in relationships that leave you feeling empty or depleted. He wants you to experience the fullness of life and joy that comes from walking in His purpose and sharing in relationships that bring peace, encouragement, and mutual support. Stagnation in personal growth is one of the clearest signs that a relationship may not be part of God's plan for your life. As individuals, we are created to grow not only physically and emotionally, but also spiritually and intellectually. God desires for us to continually evolve, to move from glory to glory, to become more like Him, and to fulfill the unique purpose He has placed on our lives. Relationships should be a catalyst for that growth, encouraging us to be the best version of ourselves, to pursue our dreams, and to develop in every aspect of our being. But when a relationship causes stagnation, it creates a barrier to this divine progression. One of the primary ways stagnation can manifest in a relationship is through a lack of support for personal aspirations and dreams. If the person you are with doesn't encourage or inspire you to pursue your God-given goals, or worse, actively discourages you from pursuing your dreams, it creates a spiritual and emotional roadblock. Instead of being your cheerleader, they may undermine your efforts or dismiss your ambitions. This lack of encouragement can make you feel trapped in mediocrity, preventing you from reaching your full potential. God's design for you is to thrive, to take steps of faith, and to grow in every area of your life, not to be held back by someone who doesn't share your vision or doesn't support your development. In addition, stagnation can occur when one person in the relationship refuses to grow. Personal growth requires a willingness to evolve, to confront weaknesses, and to take responsibility for areas that need improvement. If you find yourself constantly trying to grow and improve while your partner remains static, unwilling to face their own flaws or take the necessary steps for personal growth, it can cause a sense of frustration. This imbalance in growth leads to tension, as one person's efforts may be met with resistance, apathy, or even resentment. Over time, this lack of mutual growth can create a rift in the relationship, where one person feels as if they are evolving while the other is stuck, creating an unhealthy dynamic that stifles progress. Another sign of stagnation is when the relationship itself is not evolving. Healthy relationships should move forward. As both individuals mature, they should continue to deepen their understanding of each other, develop stronger communication, and find new ways to support and love each other. However, if the relationship has plateaued with no real emotional, intellectual, or spiritual depth being added, it can lead to a feeling of spiritual and relational stagnation. This is especially problematic when one or both individuals feel spiritually empty or disconnected, and the relationship no longer serves as a place of growth and nurturing. The lack of spiritual growth in a relationship is also a clear sign of stagnation. God has created you for continual growth in your faith, to know Him more deeply, to bear fruit in your spiritual life, and to fulfill the calling He has placed on you. If the relationship hinders that growth, either because the other person isn't spiritually engaged or because they actively discourage your spiritual practices, it becomes a form of stagnation. You might find yourself neglecting your time with God, your spiritual disciplines, or even your sense of purpose because the relationship is taking up all your emotional energy and attention. This disconnect between your spiritual life and the relationship can lead to spiritual stagnation, where you no longer feel connected to your purpose or to the God who has called you. Additionally, stagnation in personal growth can manifest in the form of emotional or mental complacency. A relationship that is not encouraging growth may keep you in a place of emotional immaturity. You may find that old patterns of behavior, unhealed wounds, or unresolved issues are constantly reappearing because there's no effort to address them or move beyond them. This emotional stagnation keeps you stuck in a cycle of unhealthy habits, limiting beliefs, or old wounds that prevent you from fully stepping into the person God has called you to be. Without intentional work on growth and development, emotional stagnation can hold you back from experiencing the fullness of life that God wants for you. In a healthy relationship, both individuals challenge and stretch each other. They don't let each other remain comfortable in their weaknesses or flaws, but help each other grow by offering support, encouragement, and accountability. If you find yourself in a relationship where you are not being challenged to grow, where your emotional, spiritual, and mental development is being stunted, it's a sign that the relationship is not fostering the kind of growth that God intends for you. Growth is an essential part of God's purpose for your life, and a relationship that hinders this growth rather than promotes it is not aligned with His plan for you. Constantly proving your worth in a relationship is a painful and draining experience. God has created you in His image with intrinsic value, and your worth is not determined by the opinions or approval of others. When you feel like you have to continuously demonstrate your value, whether through actions, words, or sacrifices, it suggests that the relationship is unhealthy and not aligned with God's will for you. In any relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, the foundation should be built on mutual respect and understanding. Each person should value the other for who they are without the need for constant justification or validation. However, when you find yourself perpetually trying to prove that you deserve love, respect, or attention, it reveals a deep disconnect from this foundational principle. A relationship that requires you to prove your worth continuously is not operating from a place of genuine love or mutual respect, but from insecurity, control, or manipulation. This dynamic often arises when one person in the relationship has low self-esteem or a need for constant reassurance. In these situations, the other person may feel the pressure to prove themselves over and over again in an attempt to gain approval or avoid conflict. Whether it's through overcompensating for mistakes, making sacrifices that aren't reciprocated, or bending to unreasonable demands, the effort to prove your worth can become emotionally exhausting. You may feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, second-guessing every word, action, or decision to ensure that the other person remains satisfied or convinced of your value. At its core, this issue often stems from the inability to accept love or validation as a given in the relationship. Instead of feeling valued just for being yourself, you may feel that your worth is only confirmed through actions or achievements. This leads to feelings of inadequacy, as no matter how much you do, it may never feel enough. You may constantly find yourself questioning if you're doing enough, being enough, or giving enough to earn the other person's approval. This ongoing cycle can undermine your confidence and lead to emotional exhaustion, making you feel as though you're never truly accepted for who you are. Positive relationships with others. Toxicity creates an environment where you are isolated, either emotionally, mentally, or even physically, from people who could otherwise support and encourage you. You might find yourself losing friends, neglecting family members, or withdrawing from your faith community because the toxic relationship takes up so much of your emotional bandwidth. Ultimately, the longer you remain under the influence of toxic behaviors and bad habits, the more difficult it becomes to break free from their grip. The damage to your self-esteem, spiritual health, and emotional well-being can be profound. If left unchecked, these influences can lead to a deeper sense of dysfunction and stagnation in your life. God calls us to live in freedom, to pursue relationships that build us up and help us grow, not ones that tear us down or hold us captive to destructive patterns. Recognizing the toxic influence and the bad habits that emerge from them is the first step toward healing, freedom, and reclaiming your purpose in God. A lack of mutual respect and value in a relationship is one of the most damaging issues that can arise. Respect is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship, as it sets the tone for how individuals treat each other and interact with one another. When respect is absent, it creates an environment where manipulation, control, and mistreatment thrive, and where love and understanding are replaced with apathy and disregard. It's impossible to truly build a deep and meaningful connection without respect, as it reflects the acknowledgement of each person's worth, boundaries, and individuality. In a relationship devoid of mutual respect, one or both individuals may feel undervalued or dismissed. This lack of respect often manifests in the way people communicate with each other. Harsh words, belittling remarks, or dismissive attitudes can chip away at a person's confidence, self-esteem, and sense of self-worth. Instead of engaging in constructive dialogue, one partner may use sarcasm, insults, or passive-aggressive behavior to get their point across while disregarding the other person's feelings or perspective. Over time, this toxic form of communication leads to resentment and emotional pain, as one person may feel that they are not being heard, understood, or appreciated for who they are. Furthermore, a lack of mutual respect can create an imbalance in the relationship where one person's needs, desires, and opinions are consistently disregarded in favor of the others. In a healthy relationship, both individuals should have an equal voice and share a sense of partnership. However, when respect is absent, one partner may dominate the relationship, making all decisions and ignoring the input of the other person. This imbalance can lead to feelings of powerlessness, frustration, and helplessness in the one who is not being valued. When your thoughts and emotions are not treated with consideration, it can leave you feeling isolated and disconnected, as though your role in the relationship is diminished. This lack of respect also extends to boundaries, which are essential for maintaining personal autonomy and emotional well-being. In a relationship that lacks mutual respect, one person may repeatedly disregard the other's boundaries, whether they are emotional, physical, or even spiritual. This may manifest as pushing someone into uncomfortable situations, disregarding their need for space, or continually crossing lines that have been clearly established. When boundaries are not respected, it creates an environment of vulnerability and insecurity, as the person whose boundaries are being violated may feel powerless to stand up for themselves or enforce their limits. Over time, this continual disregard for boundaries can cause a breakdown in trust and lead to a sense of being trapped or controlled within the relationship. In relationships where respect is lacking, there is also a tendency for one partner to devalue the other, treating them as less than, or as if they are not worthy of the same love and consideration. This devaluation may come in the form of neglecting the other's emotional needs, failing to appreciate their contributions, or taking them for granted. Instead of recognizing the unique qualities and strengths that each person brings to the relationship, the focus becomes on what the other person can do for them or how they can be used for personal gain. This creates a toxic atmosphere where love is conditional, and the relationship is centered on selfish desires rather than mutual care and consideration. Moreover, a lack of mutual respect can cause one person to feel like they have to constantly prove their worth or worthiness in the relationship. When respect is absent, individuals often feel as though they must earn the love, attention, or validation of the other person. This dynamic can lead to feelings of inadequacy, as the effort to continually prove one's value can become exhausting and unfulfilling. In relationships where both parties truly respect and value each other, there is no need for constant validation because both people inherently understand each other's worth and treat each other with dignity and honor. When respect is absent, it also affects the ability to resolve conflicts in a healthy manner. Disrespectful behavior in arguments, such as name-calling, interrupting, or invalidating each other's feelings, prevents constructive dialogue and resolution. Conflict is a natural part of any relationship, but how it is handled can make all the difference. If both partners are committed to respecting each other's perspective and emotions, they can navigate disagreements in a way that strengthens the relationship. However, when there is a lack of respect, conflicts become opportunities for personal attacks, miscommunication, and deepening emotional wounds. In relationships without mutual respect, the overall emotional atmosphere is often heavy with tension and negativity. The lack of appreciation for each other can leave both partners feeling emotionally drained and unfulfilled. Without the foundation of respect, it becomes difficult to truly connect or feel emotionally safe with one another. Instead of feeling supported and cared for, both individuals may feel as though they are merely enduring the relationship rather than thriving in it. Ultimately, the absence of mutual respect and value undermines the core foundation of any healthy relationship. Without respect, trust, communication, and love are impossible to maintain. When both individuals fail to honor each other's worth, the relationship becomes unbalanced, toxic, and spiritually draining. Respect is not just about courtesy or politeness. It is about recognizing the inherent value and dignity of the other person and treating them accordingly. When respect is restored, however, the relationship can grow stronger, fostering an environment where both people feel safe, valued, and loved. Feeling stuck or bound in a relationship is an overwhelming experience that can leave you feeling trapped, emotionally drained, and unable to move forward. It often arises when you find yourself unable to grow or progress within the relationship, whether it's due to a lack of support, constant conflict, or unhealthy dynamics that stifle your personal development. This sense of being stuck can manifest in many different ways, whether you're caught in a cycle of repetition, feeling as though you're not being heard, or unable to make decisions that align with your goals or desires. One of the most common signs of feeling stuck is a sense of emotional stagnation. In a relationship where growth is hindered, both individuals may find themselves repeating the same arguments or patterns of behavior over and over again without any resolution or positive change. No matter how hard you try to communicate, it may feel as though you're speaking past each other, unable to make progress. This lack of forward movement can lead to frustration and resentment as both partners feel as though their needs are not being met or that their emotional growth is being suppressed. In relationships where you feel stuck, it can also feel like you're unable to make decisions independently or pursue your own goals and desires. If one partner is overly controlling or dismissive of the other's aspirations, it can create a sense of emotional bondage. You may begin to prioritize the needs of the other person over your own, and in doing so, lose sight of your own dreams and identity. The relationship becomes an obstacle rather than a support system for your growth. Instead of feeling encouraged to pursue your passions, you're made to feel as though your goals are secondary to the other person's wants or needs. This dependency creates a sense of being emotionally bound to the other person, where you are unable to freely explore your own desires or make decisions that are true to yourself. Another aspect of feeling stuck is the emotional toll it takes when you feel unable to break free from the relationship. There may be moments when you recognize that the relationship is not healthy, but fear, insecurity, or guilt keeps you from making a change. This emotional bondage can feel like a prison where your thoughts and feelings are constantly overwhelmed by doubt, anxiety, and uncertainty. You may feel trapped in a cycle of dependence on the other person, or that your sense of self-worth is too intertwined with the relationship to let go. The longer you stay in this kind of environment, the more difficult it becomes to imagine a future outside of it, leaving you feeling stuck in place, unable to move forward. In some cases, feeling bound can also come from the inability to express your true self in the relationship. When one or both partners suppress their emotions, thoughts, or desires in order to keep the peace or avoid conflict, it leads to a sense of being emotionally confined. You may feel as though you cannot be honest or authentic, as there is a constant fear of rejection, judgment, or criticism. The relationship may become a place where you feel like you're walking on eggshells, afraid to speak up or express your true feelings because of how the other person might react. This creates an atmosphere of emotional repression, where neither person can fully express who they are, and the relationship becomes a space where true connection is stifled. When you feel stuck in a relationship, it can also lead to a loss of vision for the future. Instead of imagining a life full of possibilities, you may feel like you're just going through the motions, unable to see how things could improve or change. This sense of hopelessness can grow over time as the relationship continues to drain your energy and enthusiasm for life. You may begin to question your worth, your potential, or your ability to create positive change in your life. The longer you stay in a stagnant environment, the more difficult it becomes to remember what it feels like to be free, joyful, and full of purpose. Additionally, feeling bound often leads to a sense of isolation. While you may physically be with the person, you feel disconnected from your true self, from your community, or even from God. This isolation can be both emotional and social as you withdraw from friends, family, and activities that once brought you joy or fulfillment. Your world becomes smaller and the relationship consumes all of your emotional energy, leaving you with little room to engage with other meaningful parts of your life. This isolation only deepens the feeling of being stuck as you find yourself increasingly dependent on the toxic relationship for validation, love, and identity. The inability to move forward or make changes in the relationship often keeps both people trapped in a state of unresolved conflict or dissatisfaction. In situations where you feel stuck, it's not just the relationship itself that causes the stagnation, but the emotional patterns, fears, or insecurities that each person brings to the table. These unresolved issues create an emotional gridlock, preventing both individuals from moving toward a healthier, more fulfilling relationship. The longer the gridlock lasts, the harder it becomes to imagine a way out or to find the courage to take action. Ultimately, feeling stuck or bound in a relationship limits your potential and hinders your ability to grow as an individual. Instead of experiencing freedom, growth, and fulfillment, you are caught in a cycle of emotional tension and dissatisfaction that keeps you tethered to the relationship. This emotional entrapment can drain your spirit, cause you to question your worth, and leave you feeling powerless to create change. God desires for you to live in freedom, to thrive in relationships that bring you closer to your purpose and help you grow into the person He created you to be. When you feel stuck or bound, it is a clear sign that something is out of alignment, and it may be time to evaluate the relationship, seek healing, and find the courage to move forward. In conclusion, recognizing the signs that God does not want you to be in a particular relationship is crucial for your spiritual growth and emotional well-being. When a relationship lacks mutual respect, stifles personal growth, creates confusion, or drags you into unhealthy patterns, it becomes a barrier to your true purpose and calling. Feeling stuck or bound, constantly compromising your values, or being drained by toxic influence only hinders the abundant life God desires for you. It is important to remember that God calls us to relationships that foster love, respect, growth, and spiritual alignment. If you find yourself trapped in a relationship that does not reflect these values, trust that God has greater things in store for you, relationships that will uplift you, challenge you, and bring you closer to His will. Seek wisdom, embrace your worth, and have the courage to step away from what no longer serves you. Only then can you fully experience the freedom, peace, and fulfillment that God has prepared for your life.